All right. Hello, everybody. We are so excited to be together here. Tonya and I have been talking about this for a little while, and we are going to talk to you about interview strategies to help you hire the right person. I'll let Tonya go more in depth, but the reason she's here is because she's an expert not only in running and growing her own home service business, but also she has a career of experience in HR and hiring for large corporations. So she knows the strategies from the blue chip companies, and she's delivered these strategies in a home service business and is going to walk you through how you can do that in your business. So I'm Dan Fleischer, co-founder of HireBus, and I want to kick it over to Tonya. Tonya, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into the content.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I come to the home service area from public education. I was an HR administrator for large school districts for over 20 years and community college districts. So I have a master's in HR and I have a doctorate in organizational leadership. And then in 2020, I left corporate or public education and moved to Phoenix, and we decided to open a family business. And my husband and I and all three of our sons have been involved since day one in some way, shape, or form in trying to grow a concrete coating business from the ground up.
It's amazing. And I think what's so unique about your background is you've seen it done at big established systems where they have full teams dedicated to hiring, but you've also implemented and done it at a business that's been grown from the ground up. And a lot of the pain that we've seen in hiring and running good interviews is the time it takes. And I think what impressed me most was the systems and the processes and kind of philosophy that you have so that you can do high level interviews and make those really great hires while not making it a full-time job. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited for us to jump in. And I love what you said earlier, that the most important place to start is with the end in mind. So maybe we hit on the first teaching topic that you have, and we'll go from there with the three main teaching topics that you've outlined that made you successful in building a great team.
Yeah, great. So I kind of keep the philosophy of start with the end in mind, knowing that I'm going to be hiring all the time. You never want to be faced with somebody doesn't show up today and you have to have somebody on your crew. You've got these great jobs that are lined up and you don't have anybody to complete them. There's nothing worse than calling a customer and saying, I don't have a crew. You don't
Yeah.
want that to be your situation. So what we have done, and I will just say right now that we're members of Conquer and we've learned a lot of stuff from them as well. So I bring
Mm-hmm.
stuff from public education, but I also bring things that they've brought to mind. But we are hiring all the time. So we keep an Indeed posting active at a low level all the time. So we're getting people all the time. And then the way that you and I met, Dan, was, I was interested in HireBus. I was like, wow, this seems like really a really great way to screen people at that very that entry level, so that
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't waste as much time. And it's been wonderful. So we run ads all the time, making sure that we aren't facing that, because I have a list in my funnel of people who we've already interviewed that we said, yes, they'll be great. So when I have something like that, Alex, our GM, my oldest son, he can give me a call and I can go right to the funnel and say, yep, Joe that we interviewed 2 weeks ago said he would want to call. So I can call Joe and, say, hey, we've got an opening. When can you start? And we've already interviewed him. So that's really nice.
That's so
So
powerful. And one thing that I think confuses me a little bit and confused me at first is when you're always hiring, like, what does that look like? Do you have interviews just scattered throughout your day? Do you have it at certain times? How many interviews a week? Like, tactically, what does that look like for you all?
So for us, we have sales and we have production that we do this. We just have a, a basket full of great people, right?
Yeah.
And so we have blocked on our calendar on Mondays, we have 2 hour block for sales interviews. And on Wednesday, we have a 2 hour block for production interviews.
Nice.
That that holds the calendar open every single week. And then our sales support specialist, who actually has some school experience as well and knows how to review applications. I have her just set up in Indeed, and she first reviews the hire bus. So anybody that scores a 7 or higher, we will put in. We don't even interview if they don't. So if you score 7 or higher, that's the first review, and then she'll just set them in that hour block. So it's always blocked off for Alex and Mike, my husband, to do sales.
That's such a great system to have, like a good screening process and then a set time each week. So it doesn't make you feel chaotic. You're prepared, you know it's coming, and you just have this steady flow of candidates. I love that. Start with the end in mind, always be hiring. That is an awesome point. I feel like there's another place here, because you gave me some really good tips about where to find people.
Well, one of the things, and I heard this from somebody, and I wish I could give them credit because I don't know where I heard it from. So it's not my brilliant idea, but it's something that we use. Is, you go to Starbucks and you have somebody who's doing great customer service. Give them your card. They could be. I just bought a brand new car a couple of weeks ago. The salesman was phenomenal. I said, we gave him our card and said, hey, if you're ever unhappy working at the Lincoln dealership, give me a call.
Yeah.
And when you find somebody who you feel, fits within your culture and has the skill set, don't be afraid to hand them your card and say, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you.
That right there is such an important one. I know we're all really keen to build systems that are like digital, super repeatable, super scalable, but we also, like, that's where you win in the trenches with stuff like this, right? Like, you get that person that excels, that is close by, they're good, like, do it. That individual can change your business. I love that advice. And it's funny, I've heard that like sprinkled here and there. I think I've heard that some in Conquer. I've heard that some on some web podcasts, but actually doing it and being ready to do it is a different thing. So I love that you have your card ready and you're not afraid to give it.
Yeah. And I've actually heard about having business cards made that take people right to their Indeed posting. Mm-hmm. I haven't gone that far, but that's another great idea to take it to the next level for sure.
Yeah. Have a specific recruiting card ready right to your careers page. I mean, that's fantastic. And I know a few folks that are on HireBus do that, and it's wildly successful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the last thing that I wanted to say is, it can sound kind of like a negative, but at least what I've experienced in the last 3.5 years is sometimes I'll run into people that think they are the bee's knees and they think that we can't do the job without them. And as owners of the company, as a family, we've talked about this, and we've had moments, in all honesty, where we just felt like we couldn't get rid of a poor performer because who was going to install the floor? And I think those moments defined us, where we don't ever want to feel that way again. And so we've switched that way of thinking where, if somebody's not a good performer, we'd rather call a customer and say, we can't get them done today. And we'll move them, rather than be stuck with a poor performer that maybe doesn't do a good job that we have to go do a warranty call on later. So one thing, by knowing that these interviews are going, our installers, our employees, they know that we're constantly on the lookout. And, I think it encourages people like, wow, you know what? I may not be the only person. They know we appreciate them, so we're not missing that. But they also know that we have other people in the queue if we need to pull somebody up.
It's one of those things that I agree. It can feel a little harsh, but it's also fair and it's right. And it shows, I think it's actually really positive, because at the end of the day, if someone on your team is performing and they know there's good candidates, then they feel extra value, because they know, wow, I'm doing good work. I'm really valuable, and I'm more valuable than this queue. And if they're not performing, you need to move on, and it's probably better for them and you. So I think that part is so valuable. Having the waiting list of candidates is the big unlock. And we see it all the time. Like, the HireBus users that have the waiting list are the ones that are growing fast, because they're never held hostage, if you will.
Teams. No, I mean, and at the end of the day, you've got goals to meet, and the time lost. I mean, I can't imagine any of us out here in the home service industry are not spending a lot of time and money and effort to train people, right? You lose somebody, man, you've got to get somebody in there fast, because you lose so much in the turnover. Turnover is so costly.
So costly. You want a crazy stat, by the way?
Yes.
Turnover, and it differs by industry, but in contractors and home service workers, on average, turnover costs a business 40 to 120% of that employee's salary annually. So, take someone in your team's salary, take even if half of it, if you want to do a low end estimate, them leaving, not only that costs you that much, just boom, right out of your annual revenue, is what the study showed. So pretty wild stuff.
That's amazing. And I hadn't heard that stat. And of course, having my doctorate, stats are really important, but I had not heard that, but I know that, turnover for us on the production team, it's hurt. We went through a lot of people. We grow, right? We grow as business owners. We're learning as we go. We don't tolerate what we used to do 3 years ago. Like there's a lot of difference. We have high expectations. Like we have our core values on our wall in our office. We read them out every team meeting, and we're not settling. And we tell people, like, if you want to be a part of something great, then let's live out these core values. If not, then you're not going to be a part of Cardinal.
That's great. I love that. I love that adherence to what really matters. Okay, let's go on to the next learning point, which I think was, this one to me was kind of the heavy hitting one, around preparation. So talk to us a little bit about how you think about preparation, because if you do this well, it can save you a lot of time. And I'd love the teaching points you had here.
So for me, you got to be on the ball and you got to be prepared. I told you when we were prepping for this, to me, good hiring is good marketing. And so you have to be prepared. Don't think about it after the fact. That you just be prepared. You want to have a really great job description. If you want to hire well, you've got to tell people what they're going to be doing. The better you do that, the more likely you're going to have a candidate who says, I can do those things.
Mm-hmm.
If you just throw out, and I will speak for us, I've seen, installer job descriptions with competitors. And I mean, it's like 2 or 3 bullet points. And it's like, this is what you do. You're not going to catch the great fish with those. You want to be very defined, and you want to really detail what they're going to be doing. And to me, that's also a window into your culture, right? As you build that job description, you let people know how much you value the job, the people, what they're going to be stepping into. And, hopefully that weeds out some of the people we don't want to interview.
Totally. It's really interesting because I actually just posted a job for my own team. This is a little bit meta. It's a sales role, but I'm going to just share like what we did. And we actually do this for some customers too, if you're interested. But what we do is we create a custom careers page for every role. So you can see this here.
Nice.
And so we make sure it's really heavily branded. It's polished. We show like what are the benefits? But the thing I want to show you is like, what's the company culture like? What's the company's approach to employee development? How do we have opportunities for advancement? And I won't like belabor this, but
I love that.
If you're asking those questions, if you're telling someone those things, then they know that you're thinking about it. And so that makes you stand out in such a big way. And we do this for a bunch of folks in HireBus if you do our funnel.
Yeah.
But that right there is good marketing, because candidates are the other 99 jobs they've applied to are all like, must do this, must do this, must do this. And if we say, hey, this is how you can grow at HireBus, this is what our culture is like at HireBus, this is how you can earn more money at HireBus, then they're going to say, they care about the things that I care about. So
that just gave
we found that that's super powerful.
I love that. That gave me a great idea. I think I want to add a careers tab on my website.
Yeah. You should.
And then we can do team photos, things that we've done, so it makes it look fun. I love that idea. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, this just helped me, Dan. Thank you
I
so much.
know. That's why these conversations are great. We're always helping each other. We're always getting a little bit better. And one thing about the careers page that we've learned is having a careers page is great. And then if there's roles that you're always hiring, like you said, installer and sales rep, having specific pages for those roles is really valuable because it further differentiates. It's just like marketing. Like you want to qualify your exact customer, you want to qualify your exact candidate before you spend any time interviewing. So I'll let you keep going with your key points around preparation, but the job description and marketing in general is so powerful. I think you had another point. Maybe this is a perfect segue because I remember you were also talking about how important it is to qualify candidates.
Yep. Qualifying the candidates. So I had mentioned it earlier how we we started talking about HireBus. But how do you know they're good enough to warrant an hour of your time, right? Like sometimes you get so desperate, you're just like, oh, please come in. You're sitting there at the interview. I mean, I've had those moments, please show up. But I don't want to do that. My time's valuable, right? And so we don't want to interview somebody who's not qualified. We want to create the systems that qualify the candidates. So that goes down into those core requirements, right? We talked about, this was something that you brought up, was requiring balance. Like, are you requiring something that is not absolutely necessary for the job?
Mm-hmm.
Are you putting hurdles in the way
Mm-hmm.
for the position? Be careful that you're not asking for things that are not absolutely required for the job. Don't put hurdles in the way of hiring.
Yes.
The other thing is making sure you stick to your minimum. So for us, we require a valid driver's license. I don't care if you're a lead or you're not a lead. My assistant may need to drive that truck. So I've had people who come in and they're like, oh, I don't have my driver's license right now, but I will in like 2 months when I pay off my fines. Sorry.
Not worth an interview.
Nope, I'm not doing that. And I qualify that over the phone, so I don't even have to waste my time. But I didn't in the past. In the past, that would come up in an interview, and here I just wasted time.
That's so important. We see this a lot, and we're obviously like going on a lot of companies' hiring pages. And one thing I see nonstop, and you mentioned it, is these long application forms. And this is the first thing a candidate sees. I see them that are asking for social security numbers, asking for a bunch of references right up front, asking for all this information. And all that it does is it makes it so candidates don't want to apply. And I know there's like a mindset thing here where, you could say, well, if they're not willing to do that, are they going to be a good employee? Well, you'll never know because they'll never apply anyways. It's just like marketing. You want to make sure that they meet the minimum qualifications to be a potential customer. And then we have other systems to assess if they'll be a good employee, like assessments, like screener questions, like one-way interviews, or a phone interview. So what you said, Tonya, is so powerful because I see it all the time, and it drives me crazy. It's like, do not ask for someone's social security number before they've received an initial application. That's just going to scare away good candidates, and it's going to make it's under the guise of, oh no, I'm making sure they're good employees. You don't know. You'll never figure it out. Good hiring is good marketing. Work them through your funnel with the right level of friction at each stage.
Absolutely. One of the other things was we talked about minimum requirements, the driver's license, can they lift? There's just some basic things that I'll have my sales support specialist who helps me with that. She'll just do this initial screening over the phone. And then if they meet that, then, we get added to the calendar for the next round of interviews.
Awesome. That's so great. Okay. So you do an initial preparation, you make sure the job ad's really good. And then you do an initial screening on some of the core requirements. What other ways do you screen folks before you interview them?
So again, we'll go back to HireBus. We just started with HireBus. I don't know, what was it, 2 months ago?
Yeah, it was like late
literally the moment that we spoke on the phone, I put that link in my Indeed app, in my post. So every person has to do HireBus. Now that is one thing for us. that I won't even interview if you haven't done it.
Hmm.
So it's just the initial screening. That hire bus, I mean, I don't work for you guys, but it has been phenomenal. And I love it. I think it's awesome. So we put that in there. That link goes in the job ad. They have to take it. It's unlimited. So I don't have to worry about, going over a limit in hire bus. But that assessment tool will help us if they're the right fit for the position that they're hiring or they're applying for. So because you guys have built out these wonderful benchmarks in there, it just helps us see, like, where do they rank? How do they fit? What is their behavioral tendencies, and will they be good in that position? So it's phenomenal.
Well, thank you for the kind words. It's been awesome to see you use the tool really well. And dang, your job ads and your system is good because the volume on your account is crazy. It's awesome.
I'm going to tell you, there's been, over the last 3.5 years, there's been moments where people have given me great ideas and I've sat on them because I feel like I'm too busy.
Hmm.
I think probably because of my experiences in HR, I knew this was not something I could sit on. I needed to implement right away. And it's been huge. So it's been so helpful. It's weeded out people who just, if they're ranking a 3 for general labor, I'm not hiring. I'm not even interviewing them. Nope, not doing it. Saves me so much time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
Uh,
I love this system and process. So really good job ads, marketing, then really good qualifying in automated ways. But eventually you're going to get to the interview, right?
yep.
So what you told me about the way you interview like blew my mind and actually has changed my own interview process. I'd love for you to share it with the rest of the group.
Well, number one, I feel like are the people who come in and interview with me, I greatly appreciate their time. So I value them and I value their time. They could have interviewed with multiple other people. And I know people don't always look at interviewees that way, but I do. I want to make sure that they know I appreciate them. So I'm adamant about being prepared for the interview and not running around like, interview questions are printed out. Some people can do them on the computer. I'm a little bit older, so I'm like an old dog and not new tricks, but I like a piece of paper in front of me so that I can, interact that way with the candidate. But I have interview questions that are already printed out. I'm not running around and getting those done while the guy shows up in the lobby. Everything's ready. If there's 5 candidates on the list of interviews for today, I have 5 question packets with me and we're ready to go as soon as they show up. Being prepared and treating them as a guest is super important to me. We are not that great of a company that we can't value the interviewees that take the time to come interview.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my philosophy. We're marketing to candidates. So I think if you don't take that time to really let them know that you appreciate them and their time, you know what? They may choose not to go with you. They may,
Yeah.
you want to make sure you let them know in the beginning, you only get, one chance at a first impression. And that's for you too, not just the candidate.
Yeah. That one thing I think it takes humility and it takes a little bit of I know there's a lot of I know a lot of people were treated poorly in interviews in their life. And so there can often be this idea of like, that's how you do it. That's how you assess people. That's how you pay it forward.
Mm.
No, I think showing value and showing that you can still ask hard questions. You can still assess and make sure they're the right fit for your company. And if you do so in a way that's also shows that you are respectful and prompt and organized and all the things that candidates want,
Yeah.
you are going to get some really, really, really top talent. And so the fact that you leave at that, I think it's so impressive. And I think that just shows the philosophy that's like worked pretty well for you. So I
Well,
love that.
well, thank you for that. I will say that, aren't you modeling behavior that you want them to model with your customers
It's
if
a
you
good
do
point.
that, right?
Yeah, that's a really
So,
good point.
you want to model that behavior from the moment that you interact with them, and that sets the tone for how we treat people. I've had
Mm.
people, I'm going to be honest, I've had people who've interviewed that are like, they're looking around. I mean, we have our office really decked out You know, my boys have invested a lot to make it look nice and really cool, and like red walls. Our colors are red, and and core values on the wall, and our logo, and everything looks really cool. But we have people come in and they're like, I don't think I've ever really sat down at an interview like that, especially our production guys, right?
Yeah.
Our production guys, like, sometimes they'll get hired over the phone. Like,
Yeah.
be different. If you want a different result, do something different, you know? And we just recently hired a sales rep, our last hire, and he said, "You guys really got your stuff together." And
Hmm.
we see ourselves as we're a small business, right? Like, we're small. Um, and feel like we're really new, but he said, "You guys got your stuff together." Like, I'm very impressed, like, throughout the whole hiring process. So that's just kind of validation that, like, okay, I think we're kind of doing some things well.
That's so awesome. And I like, there's so much value in, you know, making sure your brand is everywhere, making sure the shop is clean, making sure that you show that. I recently was talking to someone who doesn't have a shop yet, right? They're running their business out of their home. And so they're
Yeah.
interviewing at Starbucks. And
Yeah.
we were just brainstorming the same thing though. If you want different results, you got to be different. And so one thing that we did is we set up some automations so that when someone confirms an interview, they have to like enter their name, they pick a date, their cell phone number, and then there's a question that says like, "What do you want from Starbucks?" And so,
Oh, I love
such a
that.
good idea by this guy. Such a good
Oh,
idea by this
yeah.
guy. And so, what he does is because the person's taking the time to come and interview, he's getting them like a coffee or a little breakfast sandwich
That
or
is
whatever.
so cool.
And so, even though there's no shop, it's a really great gesture to start by giving someone something. It like creates a really good first part of a
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
But B, people show up. Like, you don't get those no shows, and it's worth the $5 coffee or whatever it is to know that you're
That's
not
a
going to get
great
no
idea.
showed. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I thought that was like a super good idea in a super creative way. Even if you don't have a beautiful shop, even if it's not branded, you can do little things like this that make you different and make candidates know that you care. And I love that example from one of our higher bus customers.
I do too. I think that's a great idea. I don't know. I'd have to think of some gifts. I guess we could give away pens.
Yeah, you're
But
giving
no,
it back with it.
but I love what you just said. I mean, the fact that he doesn't have an office space, but he goes in and really sets aside that time, right? He's doing everything that we've been talking about, is sets aside the time. And how do you think that that interviewee feels? That candidate feels like, wow, this dude really took the time to hear me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a human condition, right? We all want to be heard. We all
Oh,
want to be
yeah.
heard, even a candidate.
Yeah.
The
Love that.
last thing that I would say in regards to the actual interview that I try to really, really do and commit to is turn your phone on silent, get
Mm,
somebody to take care of your phone calls. There is nothing worse than letting somebody know that they're not valued if you're interrupted with a phone call. And I get it, some people, very small businesses only have them and maybe one other person. But if there's any way that you could set aside your interview times at a time where you can do that, you want to give these candidates your undivided attention. That means nobody else is as important as me evaluating whether you're going to be the right fit for
yeah.
our company. So don't get interrupted. Tell your secretary or whoever, like, this is a no interruption zone.
Just goes back to that value statement. Like, what do you value and what are you demonstrating to the potential employee that you value? Like, imagine if they were in the same boat working with a customer and all of a sudden in the middle, they were like, hold on, like, so
I
important. Hard to
I've
do.
had
That one's hard to execute. That takes discipline though.
it is very hard to execute. And even with all of my HR experience, when we first started the company, it was very hard for me to do that because I was the only one in the office when we first started. And if that phone rang, right, that's a potential customer.
Yeah.
But I had to make that time. So we worked out other ways to do it. Maybe I didn't do it during the middle of the morning. I did it later in the afternoon when calls weren't as heavy. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's lots of ways that you can still make that happen. Interview at different times of the day where it's not as busy. But at the end of the day, I think really letting those candidates know that you value them and you are focused on them is super important. And I will tell you, I have to tell you this funny little story. When I worked in public education, I'll never forget this interview. I was interviewing for a position, and
Okay.
I interviewed with the head of the business department. And everybody loved this man. He's a great guy. I was friends with him. He's since passed away, but I developed a good working relationship with him. He was just a wonderful man. But during the interview, my interview was like after lunch, like 1 o'clock. He fell asleep in the interview, and
Oh my gosh.
it was a group interview, right? There was like 4 people on the panel, like on interviewing me, but he fell asleep. And
Like
you know,
snoring? Was he sawing
no, he
logs?
didn't snore, but he just had his head down.
Not enough.
And I was so irritated. And so I think maybe that's where this thing comes from. But I called him out. I called him
Good.
out. I said, did you fall asleep? Like I was so offended.
He's like, I
And
had a big lunch.
they ended,
Sorry.
no, he loved, I mean, like I said, we went on to have a great relationship, but I'll tell you, some of those ladies from the HR office, they thought I was so disrespectful. I'm like, hold on a minute, who's disrespectful? Like my time's valuable. So
Yeah.
I think that's where it comes from for me is, I want my time to be valued. So
Mhm.
and the way that you show that to other people is valuing their time.
Beautifully said. And I love that example. That's going to stick with me forever. It's like, even if you're not physically asleep in an interview, if you're effectively asleep by being distracted and not paying
Yep.
attention, it communicates the same thing.
It absolutely does.
That's
It
so good.
absolutely does.
That's so good. Okay. So we've talked about like preparation. We've talked about making sure these interviews, you're like really focused. What do you ask people? Like, how do you assess? Because a lot of people have questions, but I love this framework that you talked about where you're not just asking questions to have a really good list of questions, you're assessing. So talk to us about the interview itself.
Yeah. So interview questions are critical. I think sometimes a lot of people get caught in asking like the old school questions.
Mm,
Tell me about your experience. And then I've seen people say, make sure it matches to the resume. It's like, oh my goodness. I feel like it's like you're trying to catch somebody, and just tell me, I leave them more open-ended. Tell me about your experience that you think would benefit the position
mm,
in our company. So remember what your goal is for the interview questions. You're trying to learn if this candidate is a good technical and behavioral fit for the company, right? So don't waste your time on stupid questions that we asked probably 20 years ago that don't elicit the information that you need to see if they're going to be the right fit. What have they done in the past that relates to what you do? Doesn't have to be the same thing, right? Like for us, concrete coatings, we need somebody who's detail oriented, right? So I'm looking for skills that tell me that they're detail oriented. I want somebody who is enjoys like the artistic side of it because they're usually more engaged, like they like to create something. I want to hear somebody say, what did you like best about, a previous position? I'm hoping to find that they love creating stuff because hopefully we're hiring people with experience, right? And I love those guys that
mm.
say, I love to sit back at the end of the day and look at my finished product. Because I feel like that's going to tell me, oh, they care about what their finished product is. They're not just doing it here for a paycheck. They actually care. So I love those kinds of questions. So technical questions would lean more towards like, tell me about your work experience. Um, how did you fix a problem? Right?
Mm.
What are the steps to doing something? And it doesn't even have to be like exactly related to your work, but you want to hear how they're going to problem solve because
Yeah.
they're always going to run into a problem. So those are some technical questions that will help kind of elicit feedback that's going to help you see if they can technically do the job.
And you said earlier, like, you are focused on the question itself, but also the type of answer. How do you do that? Like, do you have a rubric? Do you have certain things you're looking for? Like, say you're saying, how would you fix blank? How do you know what a good answer is?
You should have a rubric. And this is where I will give credit to Conquer. Even all of my years in public education, the great questions had a sample answer, right? If I'm going to be doing the interviews all the time, I would probably remember. But if you want to create a system so that somebody else can take that load off of you, you need to have interview questions that have a rubric. What kind of answer are you looking for?
Yep.
So I'll give credit. Conquer has great questions. If you're a part of Conquer, they have some great questions with rubrics. One of the ones that I love is what did you do yesterday? And what you're looking for, the rubric under that says, I'm looking for somebody who is busy, who did something that was productive. I don't want to hear, I laid around and played video games all day.
Is that going to be someone that's going to be like working hard to make sure a customer is satisfied, or are they going to just try to finish the job? Yeah.
So, those you need to, that ties into know what you're trying to get out of the interview questions. You need to have examples so that you know what you're gauging it on. Was that a good answer? Was that not a good answer? So whether you use Conquer and they have great resources available, or you create your own, you should have underneath that question, you should have typed out what are you looking for in this answer? And that will help you get the end result that you're looking for.
Love that. And I mean, there's so many studies on this, like people in interviews make the decision in the first 30 seconds of seeing people often. There's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of studies done on like the name on the resume is more predictive than the actual contents. Like they've done all sorts of studies. And so anything that you can do to know and acknowledge, like we all are subject to just making hiring decisions based on gut, and that can work, but the more we can systematize it, the better outcomes we'll get. Is just
absolutely,
there's so much data that supports that. We all know it's true. It's really hard to do unless you take the time and build some systems, or like buy some systems, other people have done it. Just take the systems that exist.
Absolutely. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's great resources out there for you. But you have to know what you're looking for. Sometimes the worst situation to be in is I don't even know what questions to ask, right? So go find some resources out there. There's really some good stuff out there to help you. And it's going to help you get that great candidate, the right fit.
That's awesome. And one thing, like from a resource standpoint, and actually we'll probably share this with y'all. But HireBus, we have interview guides. So I can show you super quick, and Tonya's used these really well, but let me pull this up and show y'all.
Yeah. Explain how they can use those in the interview.
Yeah. So
because they are really good ones too.
So I'm literally just pulling up one of the first people that was applied. And they're applying for a customer service role. And so you can see their customer service score. So this person's a 6 out of 10. So they probably wouldn't be the first person you'd interview. It might be later. Tonya says she prioritizes folks that are 7, 8, 9, and 10. And so this is the great thing. You can prioritize interviewing the highest ranked people. We could do it this way. We can do customer service. We can do, let's just do people that have applied in the last like few weeks. And then we can do a score. And this is our super admin account. So you're seeing a lot of different folks. So if you look here,
I want that 10. I want to interview 10.
Yeah. So we'd first start with the 10. Let's just pick this 9 for example, because 9, a score of a 9 is really great. Mm-hmm. And so you'd see this person. Note they did the assessment. There's a little flag here because they did the assessment under 4 minutes. So, and it's close to 4 minutes, but it's a little rushed. So you'd want to take that into account. But you see here, the gray is the benchmark for the individual, and the blue is how the individual scored. So the gray is the benchmark for the customer service role, and the blue is how the individual scored. And there's a lot of alignment here. It's really close.
Yeah.
But I might want to see they're a little low on order. And what order is like how systematized you are, how much you adhere to systems, how much you build systems, if you like that. And not everyone likes that. Like, frankly, that's something that I personally am working on, because I score lower in order, which serves me well in a lot of ways. I can do well in chaos, but for my team, it's important to build order. So you can go and search it. So you can go down and look down here, and it pulls up anyone that's out of the framework. Questions about low order. When you have a lot of work to do, how do you prioritize and get it all done? Give an example. Great question. You can understand here, and you're asking a question based on what you know is a potential growth area, and you can understand how they use order in their day-to-day. Give an example of a time you made a mistake because you did not listen fully to what someone had to say. That's interesting. You're going to understand how organized they are, but you'll also understand how they respond to stress. So that's the first way you can do it. And then you also can go to the behavioral questions, and it pulls up interview questions based on their high and low behaviors. So lower score and criticality. Here's a long list of questions that you can ask them about that. So we've built this to, like, it's important to have those, like, those technical questions that you mentioned, Tonya, are so valuable.
Yep.
But when you're trying to assess behavior, you don't want to just start at square one. No. It's better to start in knowing what they might have to work on, what might be growth areas, what might be key behaviors, and then you can really poke and prod and understand how they might fit into your business.
Yeah, those questions they're really good. I mean, I'm so happy with the resources that we've received with Conquer and HireBus, that just more tools in our tool belt that, will help us hire right the first time. It's so nice. Some of the other questions, the behavioral questions, I wanted just to, like, some of them, one of them I love is, what will your past manager say when I ask them about your areas for growth?
Yeah, that's a great one. That one always, because you get a little bit of like you're going to talk to my past manager? When I talk to my next past manager.
It really makes them think, like, okay, I think I have to be honest here. I have to be honest because they're going to call.
You get some crazy answers, by the way. Like some people say really things that you're like, whoa, I appreciate you sharing that, but I would not,
I would not.
Good to know. Good to know.
I agree.
Amazing.
Yeah, there was another one. How did you resolve the last conflict you had with a coworker?
Ooh,
that's really good one. I mean, I've had all kinds of answers on those. I just ignore them. Yeah.
What I love about those two, Tonya, that you shared is, like, there's an assumption, which is important. When I talk to your next manager, the past conflict that you've had, like, we all know those things have happened. And if someone comes in and is like, oh no, everything's great, hunky dory, I just, wanted to leave that job and come here, something's wrong. So you force them to answer a tough question so that you can gain information.
Yeah. And if they can't, even on our production side, if they can't answer those questions well, I take it as they're not going to be able to communicate with my customers, right? Because we have a lot of customer interaction. I mean, I have customers who grab their lawn chair and sit out and watch somebody do their garage, because they just think it's the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And I need people who can interact with our customers very well and provide high levels of customer service. And I had another cute little story. I had a guy interview for a production position. He had the technical experience, like he's done a lot of floors, years of experience polishing and those kind of things. But every other word out of his mouth was yo, 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 what I mean? And I'm like, I couldn't get past it. And all I could think about was, this is how he's going to communicate with our customers.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we interviewed him. We didn't hire him. He called us back several months later. He saw our ad again and he was like, I really want to interview. And I thought, okay, maybe I didn't remember that right. So I actually invested the time and had him come in again. And it was the same thing. And guess what? We put on there, do not hire in our funnel, because we have drop downs on our funnel. So everybody that we interview, we say, do not hire, ready to hire for the next one, no show. That way, if they ever come through again, they were a no show. I'm not going to interview them either. If you didn't call me and tell me I had a car accident or my car broke down, you're a no-show. I'm not going to waste my time again. So we have some categories that we also put in our funnel. But that guy just like, he's not going to make it. He doesn't communicate in a professional way.
Yeah. And that's important. That's important to understand and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tonya, this has been unbelievable. I mean, when we first talked, I was like, oh, it'll be great. Tonya will like share how she interviews people. And the fact that you're like, no. We start way back with how we post and communicate the job, and then how we follow up with people and how we qualify people. And then eventually we'll get to the interview. I was thinking initially it would just be like, great, what are some awesome interview questions and how do you measure them? But the
Yeah.
whole, it's all related in the whole system was kind of my big takeaway. So thank you for sharing those tidbits. As we kind of wrap and leave folks with this amazing recording, are there any other like final nuggets of gold you want to share as they start to build out their interview and hiring process?
I would say, trust your gut. I think probably in my experience, I've probably taken more chances than I should have. So get your systems down and then trust your systems, rather than, I said trust your gut, but let me back up. Trust your systems rather than your gut. Then
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about, I think I'm right. I think this guy's going to work. Take a minute and build those systems. And even if you just start with, you know, 5, 6 interview questions, just get them dialed in, get your rubrics, like start small, taking little bites, and getting it done, but build that system so that you can trust that. And you're not trusting your gut. Like, he seems like an honest guy. So get the systems built. Get the systems built. You will save yourself time. We have saved ourselves so much time by implementing HireBus that I can't tell you how many people we haven't interviewed that I would have. They had the experience on paper. I didn't interview them.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
That's
My
awesome.
interviews are more quality now.
That makes me so happy. And I do think it's like what everything else in our business is systemized, except for people often is I'm so lucky or X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
No, build a system for your people, probably the most important part of your business.
Yeah. Yep. It is. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Tonya, thank you for your time. I know it's super valuable. We all appreciate it. Everyone that's watching this recording appreciates it. And we're going to leave a few links. Number one, if you want to like talk to Tonya, she's obviously a professional and I think she does some consulting to help organizations. So we'll include a link here to get in touch with Tonya. And then we'll also include a link to some of the resources like the question chart or where to find that if you're in HireBus so that you can use some of these tools in your business. So thanks everybody. Appreciate the time. And if you have questions, let us know. We'd love to help you.
Thank you for having me.